Hello and welcome to SourceCAD. In this three-part SolidWorks tutorial series, I will introduce you to SolidWorks software right from the basics. This series is for users who are completely new to SolidWorks and want to learn it right from scratch. Now, the first part of this series is dedicated to 2D basics and sketching. The second part is related to basic 3D modeling, and the last part is advanced 3D modeling techniques. So these are the topics we'll be covering in this part 1 of 3-part video series. We'll start with the basics of user interface, command manager, visual style, and view tools. And then we'll talk about mouse navigation tools. Later, we'll discuss setting units and precision in our drawings. Then we'll start the basics of sketch with tools like lines, selection set, circle, and rectangle. We'll then talk about the sketch relation and constraints. Finally, we'll talk about modifying sketches using tools like fillet, chamfer, trim, mirror, offset, rotate, move, and copy. Now, if you want to explore full-length SolidWorks courses with more than 20 hours of video lessons from SolidWorks part modeling, assembly, drawing, rendering, and more, backed by real-world projects and instructor support for Q&A, then check our SolidWorks course library on SourceCAD and start learning right now. Link is in the description of this video, or you can also click somewhere here at the top to go to directly that page. You can enroll now for a very little subscription fee, and you can cancel it anytime you want. So with that, let's get started. When you start SolidWorks for the very first time, this is the kind of screen which you will see. Now, on this screen, you will have very few options to start your drawing, but the one which we need is this new option. So you can go to this new option here to start a new drawing, or you can also go to this file option and select new. In this case, I'll click on this new option from here and then select the environment in which you want to start your drawing. We have 3 environments by default. We have part, assembly, and drawing. Now this entire view is called novice view. You can switch to advanced, and that's going to show you basically the same thing, part, assembly, and drawing. But if you have created your own templates, that's going to show up also here in this list, and you can select it to start with a predefined template. In this case, I'll go to the novice view, select the part, and click OK to start in the part modeling environment. Now in the part modeling environment, this is the screen that you will usually see. Now let's explore the user interface objects here. Well, the first thing here is the menu. The menu is visible because I have this push pin selected. If you keep this one unchecked, the menu will hide behind this SolidWorks logo. So you can just hover your cursor over this logo and the menu will show up, and then click this push pin to keep it sticky like that. We also have the quick access toolbar here with all of these tools. Now, usually the quick access toolbar won't show up here, and instead it is visible somewhere here. Now, if you don't want to show it here, you can always change it and you can bring it like that. And to change this, you need to go to this gear option and select customize. And in the customization option, we have toolbar, where you need to check this option, show in menu bar. By default, it is checked as this, show in command manager, and that's how it's going to show up. So you can just click this arrow and go to this option and select show in menu bar. Another option is size of icons. Right now I've selected the smallest size of icons, so you can also keep this one checked. If, however, you want, you can change the size of icons. Now click OK to accept the default options. The next one is command manager. This area is called command manager, and as you can see, we have just a few tabs here on this command manager. You can activate or deactivate tabs based on your requirements. So simply to activate any tab, simply right click anywhere on the command manager, go to tabs and activate the one which you want. In this case, the checked tabs are activated and the one without the tick mark are deactivated. Let's say we want to activate render tools. Select, and now the render tool tab is here. To hide it, right click, go to tab and deactivate this, and the render tab is no longer visible. Now after that, we have the feature tree here and all of the options. We have the part here with all of its features, we have the properties and so on, that we will explore as we move through this series. Then we have this heads up bar here. Now the heads up bar is helpful for navigating in your drawing and also for changing the visual style of your drawing as well as the background. Now to understand this, I'll start a part file. So here I have a part file. Now this is made with Solidworks, and if you want to just open the same file, well, use the link in the description to download all the files used throughout this video series. Alright, so with that being said, here we have the part file. Now, if you want to change the way it is displayed, for example, we have the shadows and also some other features that you want to maybe activate or deactivate, then you can go to this last option, which is view setting, and then activate the settings that you want. For example, if you want shadows in shaded mode, you can check this. And now we have shadows in the shaded mode. You can also add ambient occlusion. And if you want, you can activate the perspective view. Right now we are looking at this model in parallel. So go to perspective, and there we are. In perspective view, the object is closer to reality, the way we will see in the real world. And this may not look very different from the parallel view because of the smaller object, but for large objects, the difference is quite apparent. Then we have the cartoonish view, which is this one. So that's just the way of looking at the model. In this case, I'll keep all of these effects deactivated because activating the effect will simply activate extra options that will consume more processing power, and ultimately your software performance will degrade. So if not required, keep these options deactivated. Now the next one is the background. So you can select this apply scene option and change the background using all of these options. I prefer the 3-point faded background. Then we have the visual style option right here. So go to this one, and here we have shaded with edges. You can select shaded and no edge will show up. Also, you can change only edges, and then we have some other options. Edges with hidden line, and finally all the edges in wireframe view. I'll once again change it back to shaded with edges. Now this option won't show up by default, but this is an option which I have added here because it is quite useful. So let me show you what that is. Now this normal to option will let you make any plane normal. For example, in this case, let's say we want to make our drawing or sketch on this plane. So I'll select this plane, and now I'll click on normal to, and that plane will become, well, parallel to our current view, and we can easily work on it. So that's the normal to option. Now this normal to option is not available by default, so I've added it. And if you want to add it, well, you can follow this step. So go to this option, go to customize, and in the customize, go to commands because, well, that's a command. Now here you can actually search for that command, and that command is normal to. So I'll simply type its name, normal, and here we are, we've got this. Now drag it and drop it here, and it's gonna add it. Now as you can see, it has added 2 of these, which I don't want. So I'll simply move it out, and now it's gone. So simply click OK, and here we have the normal to. In a similar way, you can add any number of tools either here on heads up bar or even on command manager if you want. Now the next option is view settings. So if you want to change the view of this drawing, then you can go to this cuboid option, click this arrow, and now a new cuboid will show up around this complete model, and you can hover your cursor on any of these planes of this cuboid just to go to that view. For example, if you want to go to this view, select that, it's going to take you there. To activate that cuboid, you can also press spacebar, and now click a view, it's going to take you there again, and click the view. You can also go to this one and select from one of the predefined views. Now right inside this also, we have the option of selecting isometric, dimetric or trimetric view. So if you want to change it to that, well, you can. And you can also select the multiple viewports. For example, if you want to see your drawing from different views, you can split your current view into multiple viewports. For example, I'll go to 4 view, and now the same drawing is visible in 4 different viewports. You can activate any of these and then navigate in your selected viewport, and all the others will be affected. Now to switch back to one, I'll just go back to this and select this single view, and we are back to this. Then we have the zoom options. So we have this zoom area or zoom window, select it and make a window. Now everything inside that window will be zoomed in. For example, if you want to zoom this whole, select it, and that's going to zoom in. If you want to fit your drawing, select this second zoom option, zoom to fit, and that's going to fit your drawing in your complete drawing view. I'll also deactivate this zoom. Now the next option is navigating using your mouse wheel. Now throughout this complete session, I have tried to minimize the use of mouse, but now I'll show you how mouse can be used to bypass all of these options. Now, the first thing is zooming in and out. You can zoom in and out using simply this mouse wheel. So rotate the mouse wheel in one direction, that's going to zoom in another, it's going to zoom out. To pan your drawing, press and hold Control key and then press your middle mouse wheel, and it will let you pan your drawing. To orbit your drawing, simply press and hold your middle mouse wheel and move your cursor, and that's going to let you orbit your drawing freely in this current view. So that's how you can orbit your drawing. Now I'm using a 3D mouse for fluid navigation and movement. So in my case, it will let me just move this model as if I'm holding it in my hand. And if you want to use the same 3D mouse, well, you can check its link in the description. Now the next thing is units. Unit is one of the first settings that you should make when you start a new drawing. So for unit, I'll start a new drawing. So I'll go to new, click on part and click OK. And that's how we can start a new drawing. Now the unit option is here on the bottom right corner. As you can see, the current unit is mmgs, millimeter gram second. You can click here to switch to a different unit setting. If you also want to change more settings like precision, then go to this edit document unit, and that will take you to this document unit option where you can change not only the units, but also you can change the precision. For example, for length, we have 2 decimal places of precision, but let's say we want a better control over this drawing and we want 4 decimal places. So select 4. Now, once you have selected more decimal places, it is recommended that you change it for other length options. So I've changed it for length, so I'll change it here as well for length. I'll make it 4. And for dual dimension also, I'll just make it 4 decimal places. Once you're satisfied, you can click OK, and we now have a completely new unit where 4 decimal places will show up. We are still using millimeter though. Now let's start making our sketches. And to start making sketch, you need to go to this sketch tab on the command manager, and here you'll see all the tools required for making sketch. To make a sketch, we need to start with this sketch tool. Select the sketch tool, and now you need to select one of the 3 default planes. We have the front plane, top plane, and right plane. You can select any of these planes wherever you want to start your drawing from. Now in this case, I'll select front plane, though it doesn't matter which plane you select. And selecting a plane is just a personal preference when you are starting a blank drawing. So here I'll select front plane. And now the view will orient to my view direction, and we are ready to make our drawing. Now we are in the sketch mode. And when you are in the sketch mode, this exit sketch will show up, and also this exit sketch will show up here. So once you are done making drawing, you can click exit sketch to go back to the 3D mode. Now let me show you how we can make our drawing. So I'll go to line, and I'll start with this origin. Now this is the origin of our drawing from where you can start making drawing, and here we are. Now when making any geometry, Solidworks will give you visual clues as to what distance or angle you are currently using. So in this case, the length of this line is approximately 36, as you can see it here, and also the angle is 90 degrees. If however I move it, that value will change. Now we have this 33 unit approximately, and the angle is 135. So this is giving you a kind of a visual reference as to what distance or angle you're working on. So here I'll simply click here, and now we have a horizontal line. Now as soon as I clicked, Solidworks automatically added these 2 green things, and these things are called constraints. So what just happened? Well, it added the first constraint, which is coincident, and with this Solidworks will now keep this line connected to this origin. So that's coincident. The second one is horizontal. Now with this constraint, the line will remain horizontal no matter what. So now I'll just go back to this point, and I'll actually start the line tool, and I'll make another line like so, and I'll press escape key. All right, so we have another horizontal constraint here. So I ended up making 2 parallel lines. Now if I try moving this line, well, you'll notice that it won't move, though we can change the length of this line, but we cannot move it like that because of this horizontal constraint. It will always remain horizontal. Not only that, we cannot move this point away from the center because of this coincident. It will keep it coincident or connected to that point. But we can move this point wherever we like, and this one too. And if you delete this constraint, the horizontal, from here or maybe from here, you can actually change the direction too. So I'll right click on this green option, click on delete, and now if I move this, well, we'll be able to change its angle because it's no longer horizontal and the constraint is no longer applied. Similarly, you can just delete this coincident, and now you can move this point away from origin. So that's the coincident and horizontal constraint. Now if you want to select any object and delete it, you can simply select and click on delete key on your keyboard, or you can make a box like that and everything inside the box will be selected, and then press delete key. Now in this case, I'll start with line tool again, and I'll click on this point and I'll randomly add few lines. So here I'll add the line, and now as you can see, we have several yellow lines. Now these yellow lines are to help you make your geometry precisely. Now if I move my cursor exactly along this line, it will make my line perpendicular to this one, and if I move it like so, it will make it collinear with the previous one. So this is basically giving you a clue as to how your drawing is being made. Now in this case, I don't want it like that, so I'll simply join it with this point. Now as soon as I joined it, the complete drawing changed color and now it's shaded. So I'll press escape to exit out of this sketch mode, and here this area, the shaded one, can now be converted into 3D very easily because it's a closed shape. So all the closed shapes can be converted into 3D. Not only that, here we also have one constraint, and that's vertical. Other than that, we don't have any other constraint over all of these other lines. So we can freely move all these other lines. But if you want to add constraints manually, then you can do that as well. Let's add it. So the first constraint that I'll add is horizontal on this line. So I'll select this line, and here when you select it, the constraint or the relations will show up here. Now these are the only three relations that you can apply: horizontal, vertical, or fix. I'll select horizontal, and now it's horizontal. I'll make this one vertical. So I'll select this, I'll make it vertical. Now I'll select this one and I'll make it horizontal. And now we have this rectangle, which, well, will remain a rectangle no matter what. Now let's talk about the color of sketches. So here these two lines are blue in color, but these two are black. So what's happening here? Well, these two are defined fully, but these two are not. When your drawing is fully defined, it won't move. Its shape won't change, its size won't change. In this case, the shape is not changing. It is rectangle, and no matter how you move, it will remain a rectangle, but the size is changing. So to constrain the size, you can add dimensions, and that dimension option is right here, smart dimension. So go to that and now select the dimensions. So I'll select this line, and then I'll select this line, and now I'll click on third point to just place that dimension. Now that dimension happens to be, well, 66 unit approximately. We'll change that to 50, and I'll press enter key, and here we are. Now that length is 50 mm. Now as you can see, we've used 4 decimal places, so that will show up here as well. Now I'll go to this one and this one, and I'll click again, and I'll make that 25 and enter, and now that's 25. So the color of this drawing now changed to a completely black color. And if you try applying any other dimension now, maybe from here to here, I'll add one more, it will show this kind of error message because now we are over defining it. We are adding dimension that is no longer required. So a black drawing is fully defined drawing, and the fully defined drawing will show here as fully defined too. So you can see that message here. If, however, I press escape key and if I delete any of these dimensional constraints, it will change that fully defined to underdefined. And now we have the blue color, which indicates that, well, this dimension can still change. A fully defined drawing is the better one, and you should try to make your sketches fully defined before you convert it into 3D. Now here we have already created our rectangle. Now let's say we want to add more details in our drawing. For example, let's say we want to add circle. To do that, you can go to the circle tool right about here. We have an arrow right beside circle, and we basically can use simple center circle and the perimeter circle. Let's start with simple circle, and now I'll click on this point and I'll add the circle like that. All right, now I'll go to the perimeter circle, and let me show you what that is. So basically here you need 3 points to define the circle. So I'll select the first point right about here, second point here, and the third point here. And now we have this perimeter circle where the circle is tangent on all the 3 lines. All right, so we've got the circle as well. Now, how about cleaning this drawing a little bit? So we've got all of these things. Now let's say we don't want some geometries from inside, and for that we can trim it. So let's go to trim entities. That's again on sketch tab. Select, and now we have several options. So at the end of the day, almost all the options will simply delete part of your drawing. The one which we need is power trim. Select that, and now press and hold your left click. Now simply click at a point and start moving. So whatever intersects that freehand sketch will be trimmed. I'll move it and that's also trimmed. I'll repeat the process. So I'll move it like that, it's trimmed, and I'll repeat it here, and for this side too. And we now have this pill shape added here, this slot kind of shape. To exit out of this command, you can press escape key and the trim command is gone. Now, if you want to directly add a rectangle, we have the tool for that as well. So we have the rectangle tool here. Click this arrow and it will show you all the other rectangle options. We have the corner rectangle as the default, which means we need to specify 2 corners like this, and we have the rectangle. We also have the option of selecting center rectangle, where we need to start with center and then move out and the rectangle will be added. And similarly, we have other options where we can add rectangle with 3 points, 3 point with a center and a parallelogram. So parallelogram is also 3 point, but it's not a rectangle. Here in this case, all the sides will remain parallel. But of course, as you can see, this is not a rectangle. So I'll just select it and I'll delete it. But before deleting, you'll notice that only these 2 lines are selected. That's because only these 2 were completely inside my selection box. Now I can also make a box like that. So I'll start from right and move my cursor towards left. And in this case, I'll get this green box. Now this green box is slightly different. Anything which is completely inside the green box will be selected, and anything that even touches the green box will also be selected. So in this case, I ended up selecting all the 4 lines because of the green box. But if you, however, use the default one, start from left, move to the right, then in this case, only the sketches which are completely inside will be selected like that. All right, so I'll press escape, select it all and delete. Now that we have added all of these sketches, let's talk about modifying these as well. So to do that, I'll simply delete all of these rectangles that are inside. So I'll make a window like that and press the delete key. And now I'll start with offset. Now using offset tool, you can create offset geometries, and that offset tool is right here. So I'll click on offset, and here the first thing is offset distance. Let's change that to 2 unit. All right, we have several options which we will see, but first let's select the geometry. So I'll simply click on this line and we have an offset here at 2 unit distance, the same line at 2 unit distance. You can select more geometries and SolidWorks will create more offsets. Now, if you want to reverse the direction, if you want to move it out, select reverse and click again to move it inside. You can also select chain, and when you do that, all you need to do is select one single sketch and all the other sketches connected will be selected. I don't want to select the chain, so I'll uncheck this. You can also select bidirectional if you want to make offset inside as well as outside. And you can select cap ends if you want to close the ends. In this case, it will automatically end the cap with this semicircular shape in both the sides. We don't want to cap it, so I'll uncheck this. But if you want to, you can keep it checked, and then you can select arc or line if you want to just cap it using straight lines. Let's just uncheck this. We also have an option of construction geometry where you can convert main geometry or the new offset geometry into construction. For example, here I'll select offset geometry as construction. Now we have this thing as construction geometry, this dashed line. It won't be added as a solid line. We don't want that either. So I'll just uncheck this. I'll uncheck bidirectional and I'll keep an offset inside. So click OK, and that's our offset. Now, after adding the offset, you can change its distance using this constraint. So it is 2 unit. If you want to change that to, let's say 3, just change it here and the distance will change completely. Now let's talk about other tools here. So the next one is move and copy. Now these are some of the options that you may end up using quite frequently. So here I'll go to arc tool and I'll just make an arc right here. So using arc tool, we can make an arc, and in this case I'm using 3-point arc. So I'll select first point, second point and third point somewhere here, and I'll repeat the process. So first point, second point and third point maybe somewhere here. Of course the drawing is not very good, that's totally fine. We'll use it only as a reference. Now if you want to add more arc, you can click here and then you can select more arc options. For example, center point arc will let you make an arc that starts from center. In this case, I just ended up making this arc which doesn't look right. Here we have less distance, here we have more. But if you want to be precise, you can start with the center point where you can select the center first, then the starting point and then the end point. And now you can be sure that your arc will look perfect because it's starting from center. Now we can of course delete this one, the arc that we don't need. And here we are. Okay, now let's talk about copying the entities. So we have created these 2 sketches. Let's make copy of this. To make the copy, I'll first add a line, and here I'll go to line tool, click this arrow, and I'll add this center line. Now center line is slightly different. In this case, it will add a construction geometry. So I'll click on this point and this, and we have this kind of dotted line, which is a construction geometry that we can use as a reference. Now with that, we have a reference line that we can use. Let's go to this option, this drop down, and select copy entities. I'll select this and this arc. Both the arcs are selected. Now select the option from to or XY. In this case, I'll select from to, because in XY option, you need to specify the X and Y coordinate values and it will just move it there. But in this case, you just need to start with a starting point and then specify the end point. So I'll select this. Now I'll select this as the starting point and I'll move it. And here it is. It's creating a copy like so. Now I'll use this line, this reference line in a moment, but we now have, well, this copied geometry. Now, if you want to make another copy very quickly without using all of these bells and whistles, then you can select the geometries and then press and hold your control key and move your sketch out. And basically that will create a copy too, like that. So it's a quick way of making copy. Now let's talk about creating mirrored entities, and that's here, the mirror tool. So select the mirror entity tool and select the sketches that you want to mirror. In this case, I want to mirror the sketch, this one and this one. Now click on copy, and that will ensure a copy is created. It will keep this one and just make a new copy. Then go to mirror about and now select this sketch and we have a mirrored copy. Click OK, and there we are. We've got the mirror image. Now I'll select it all and delete it. I'll also select this and delete it. Now, before we wrap this up, let's talk about some final 2D sketch tools that you'll often use. So I'll select this entire drawing and delete it. And I'll now go to the simple rectangle and I'll add the rectangle like that. And now I'll also add a circle, maybe right about here. Now let's say we want to move this circle right inside this. For that, you can use this move entity tool. Select move entity, select the circle, and now again go to this box, select the starting point and then select the end point wherever you want to move it. We also have options of rotating the object. So in this case, the rotate option won't work because we have all of these constraints applied, which will keep these lines horizontal, this one vertical. So just to make it work, I'll add another line which is not constrained, something like that. If you want to rotate this, well, the easiest method is grab one of these points and rotate it. And if you want to rotate it precisely, then you can go to this drop down, select rotate entities and then rotate it. Select the entities to rotate here. Now specify the center of rotation. In this case, I'll select this point as center of rotation. And now you can specify a perfect angle, for example, 60 degrees, and press tab key, and that's going to rotate it by an angle of 60 degrees with respect to the original line. So if you want a precise control like that, you can use this option. Click OK, and there's the rotated geometry. Finally, let's talk about fillets and chamfers. So the fillet tool is right here. And using this fillet tool, you can add rounded corners, and using chamfer, you can add straight lines on the corner. So I'll start with fillet. Now here you need to start with sketch entities that you want to, well, fillet. So I'll select this line and this, and the corner will be filleted like so. You can change the fillet radius here. So I'll just make it 5 and tab key and click OK, and the fillet is applied. You can also select just the vertex and the fillet will be applied even in that case. And if you want to apply fillet on several vertices directly, then make a box, and that's going to apply the fillet directly on all the vertices. Click OK, and the fillet is applied. In a similar way, the chamfer tool works. So I'll press Ctrl Z a couple of times to return back to the main drawing, and now I'll go to chamfer. So here also, as you can see, we have the similar set of options, but the only difference is we have distance instead of radius for chamfer. So we have angle distance and distance option. Here also equal distance is checked. So here I'll start with the distance value and I'll set it at 5. Now with equal distance checked, I'll select the two edges. So the first, second, and we have chamfer of 5 unit applied on both the lines. Simply click OK and the chamfer is added. Now, if you want to change the chamfer length, you can change it using any of these parameters. So maybe I'll just double click on this one and I'll make it 7. Press enter, and now the 7 unit will be for the second chamfer length as well. So that's the chamfer. Now the 7 unit distance is the distance between this edge and the original vertex. Now, if you want to apply non-uniform chamfer, well, then go to chamfer tool and uncheck this option, equal distance. And now you can set different values for the distances. For example, 6 for the first distance, and I'll maybe leave 10 for second. Now I'll click on this line, and that will become the first line or the first distance line where the length is 6. And then I'll click here, and that's the second distance line, and that length will be 10. So this length is 6, this length is 10. Click OK, and we have this. Finally, we have the third chamfer type where we need an angle too. So I'll go to chamfer, angle distance, and now here we can specify the distance and angle. So maybe I'll select 7 as the distance, and I'll leave 45 degree as the angle. Now I'll select the edge and another one, and we have this. So we have 7 unit distance from this vertex to this new one, and then 45 degree is the inclination of that line. So with that, we have the third type of chamfer. So that's part 1. Click the video here to go to the part 2 of this series where we'll discuss the basic 3D modeling tools. I'll see you in the next part.